Advance is the market leader in recruitment. They have trained their AI on a staggering 85 million resumes. Let Advance also accurately predict the best job for your candidates. Go to advance.com to read more about their solutions. Advance, not just a recruitment tool, but a paradigm shift in work tech. Yes, and welcome back to AI in Recruitment, the podcast that explores the latest developments in artificial intelligence and its impact on the recruitment industry. My name is Jasper, Spanjaart, and I am pleased to be joined by none other than my co-host, Martijn Hemminga. Welcome back, Martijn.
Yes, here I am, back again.
You're back again? Well, I'm very pleased to see you again.
Yes, a little bit back on track.
Back on track. So today we're going to be onto a light subject today. We're delving into all things AI and bias discrimination. But how have you been, Martijn? You're back. How have you been?
Well, I'm feeling a little bit better. It's something that called 25 years ago when I had the same problems, RSI. So the mouse arm, that's what it calls, the mouse arm in Dutch.
Yeah.
Nowadays it's called CANS, complaints, arms, necks, and shoulders. So
right.
I'm a little bit back on track. 1 hour a day after with a keyboard and a mouse. So, but it was zero, doing nothing. So
doing absolutely
and
nothing,
I can do.
Which I know you a little bit. That's not easy for you to do.
Now, in the beginning it wasn't easy. Now it's getting okay. The weather is getting better. Sun shines. So now it's not. It's I hate it, but okay. It's I have to take care for myself, and now it's getting better. And one thing I can do is talking. So I'm ready for the podcast.
So we can get starting on the podcast again, which is good. And well, you haven't quite stood still because, I think best to start with some AI news, because that's the audience has been wanting AI news from us for. We've been getting emails like, "Where's your AI news?" So start with some AI news because you have taken your DJing skills to a whole new level. But tell me more about that.
Well, it's not something I did myself, but the last couple of, I think, about 5-6 weeks, there are some new AI apps. So the example I have now is from Suno.ai. And the last week or 2 weeks ago, there was Udio.ai.
Yep.
And these are great music production tools. So you type in your prompt, and in a couple of minutes later, you've got a whole song. And there is just like everything which appears with AI, there is of course some criticism and backlash, because of the copyright infringement, but also it has to be trained by music from other people, so and they don't see anything for they ripped off their songs, for example. But maybe we should listen.
Maybe we should listen, because it's sort of amazing and scary at the same time. Let's listen to it.
In a world of endless possibilities, where technology meets our wildest dreams, we're paving our way to a brighter truth, with AI revolutionizing how we recruit. Jasper and Martijn, hosts of the podcast world, spreading knowledge, insights, and stories untold. They dive into the realm of innovation, AI and recruitment, tomorrow's salvation.
Absolutely not. Let's just keep this running on the background, because it's, like I said, sort of amazing and crazy. I expect this song to be played at karaoke bars all over the world fairly soon. It's just, yeah, I mean, it's just staggering. When you first sent this to me, I was like, what's happening here? What did he do? Yeah, but I mean, how long did this take you to produce?
I think
seconds.
Make in the podcast intro for a podcast about AI and recruitment with hosts Jasper and Martijn. So that was it. And then 3 minutes later, you've got 2 songs, and the
Crazy.
other one was more a cappella. And this one was the best, but still not something. It's a little bit slow, and later on it gets some more beat on it. So maybe at the end we should play the whole song on the end. So people, if you are curious about the whole song, stay tuned to the end.
Stay tuned. Yeah, it's crazy. It's just crazy because you just mentioned it. Like, obviously, this is based on like vast amount of data, and I mean, there's been like for the music industry, there's been lawsuits happening every year, every month, with just artists claiming, well, that's actually my song that you're using. So, for these tools to exist, I just can't see the longevity there, because surely they're going to get sued from all different areas and aspects, because if you can create a song like in split second and it sounds reasonably good, because even I'm more of an 80s guy, so I think all of the modern music doesn't sound that great, but to me this sounds like any given music that you could just put the radio on and just go like, oh yeah, that's probably music that's produced in this age. It's crazy.
Well, it's crazy, and that's something just like what a recruiter. It's also if you're a singer-songwriter and you make music, you're a producer. Can you do you have to step on the train, or can you wait at the station? And just like a recruiter, can a recruiter say, "I'm not going to use AI the next 10 years"? It's also with people, and not the music. It's also with video. It's getting. We're just joking about the video clip, but also there are getting more and more video tools made by AI based on a prompt you type in. So, yeah.
No, well, true. I think it generally just because I also do videography work, right? I'm a videographer, documentary filmmaker, so I think about this stuff where I go, am I worried about it? But at the same time, as long as AI can't shoot an interview for me, there's not much use there. Like, you can do I've looked into it. You can do really generic videos of like, here's a cityscape and here's a dramatic voiceover. But maybe 10% of all videos are like that, if that even. So, but it's interesting to see. It's just for music industry, it's slightly different because obviously you have no visual elements there. Even with the photography stuff that people say, all photographers are going to be out of work. Well, who's going to take a photo at any given event?
I think especially stock music.
If that's your business. Because I use stock music for my videos, and if I can create something slightly more customized, and I don't have to pay all these different license fees and stuff, because I know how ridiculous it can be to to get the rights for a music piece. Even if you get the artist to agree to give it to you for free, you'll have a corporation like Sony behind it saying, well, actually, pay us €3,000 because you're using a song for 30 seconds. So that's definitely something where you could, like, as a video maker, you can definitely take advantage of these tools. My news is go on.
Yeah, but before you go to your news, I think we mentioned it in a previous podcast already. We would like to have later this year a podcast with more creative employer brand agency about how they use AI with creation of video ads or something, and so that's really a topic we should discuss also with them later on.
It's a very good topic because as we just said, like as we alluded to, you can definitely use this stuff, but again, it's about being careful with it. Again, it's something that always comes down. Okay. My news is all about Apple, because I'm a bit of an Apple nerd, as you well know, Martijn. Because Apple is finally delving into the AI space. They're working on a series of AI announcements for the Worldwide Developers Conference in 2024 in June. We don't know exactly what these announcements will entail, but if you're Googling a bit like me, you'll find some stuff there. Apple researchers, AI researchers, have published a research paper that sort of sheds light on Apple's AI plans for Siri in particular. It could let Siri remember your conversation history, understand your iPhone screen, sort of be aware of surrounding activities, such as recognizing the music playing in the background, which is useful if you want to identify our song. And they say generally it could outperform GPT-4 substantially. Now we've talked about Google in the past. We've talked about OpenAI a lot in the past. Now finally, sort of the last player I feel like is entering the scene. They've waited way longer than any other company, basically, any big company waiting to release AI-related technology. So, yeah, I mean, I'd be really curious to see where this goes, because there's always a reason why Apple waits. I think the timing of Apple has been particularly good in the past. Without Steve Jobs, it's changed slightly, but we may be talking more about Apple in the forthcoming months, weeks, years. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see where this goes.
Yeah. Okay.
Good.
When I think of an apple, I'm still thinking about a juicy apple you can eat, but okay.
Yeah,
I'm more a Samsung.
I mean, there's some people among us that prefer inferior technology, Martijn. That's absolutely fine.
But great that that also Apple will follow all the other big tech companies in doing AI. Yes, right on time.
Yeah. But enough said about Apple. Let's not get into the technology war. Onto today's topic, bias discrimination. Like I mentioned, a light subject for today's episode. We're not delving into the full scope, but yeah.
Yeah, well, I think this is a topic you had to talk about, and we did already last year, of course, because it's something that people who are against AI or against technology uses the first time. Oh, AI is biased, and so it's still a topic. And if you say technology helps us with against bias, it's still a big concern. So AI is the future, but it isn't still there. We can say technology helps us to fight bias and discrimination.
No, I agree. I agree completely. And, it's always an endless debate. Is the technology biased? Is the data biased? Is the recruiter biased? Probably you could say yes or no to all. Yeah, you could probably say yes to all three. And these biases aren't just like theoretical. I think that's what's important to point out. Like this affects real people. Like we've reading up on some stuff earlier. You find facial recognition software that's been shown to fail like with black people more often than white people. Like it's not just a glitch, right? It's a reflection of what the data entails and what it's trained on. But and that goes beyond software. That just goes beyond recognition software too, because it's all about the data, isn't it?
Yeah, and the base of the basis of the data is also is always a human somewhere. Not only for the data, but also making algorithms to scrape the data, for example. So that's the big problem. And talking about the subject, I always have to think, and that's something we also discussed about the Tesla, the automatic pilot. When there's a Tesla with an automatic pilot crashes into a tree, then it's on the front on the front page of a newspaper or a news website. But at the same day, hundreds of people-driven cars are also crashed against a tree, and it's not mentioned at all. I also have to think about Boeing at this moment with a lot of problems, but still flying also within a Boeing airplane is still the safest way to travel. And it's also with this, yes, AI is biased, but if it's easier, not easy, but it's easier to manage bias of a software than try to manage the bias of 20 recruiters in your team, for example. So
True. Yeah, and
So
and that's an element that we haven't really paid. I mean, the AI protagonists, those that view AI as sort of a revolutionary tool to do good on the market, will also always say like recruiters are just biased. They are biased people because everyone's biased, and it's something that I've learned as well doing my journalism degree, for example, because we were always trained like don't be biased, like don't be judgmental, don't be try to take like both sides of the point. Or I go, well, yeah, sure, you can try to do that, but we are humans, so we have unconscious biases just flying around in our own heads constantly, because that's who we are. We've got a certain upbringing. You've got a certain upbringing. I've got a certain upbringing. Well, we've got loads of similarities. If we were to do this podcast with someone from the beautiful country of Uganda, just to name any country, he or she will think vastly different about a wide number of subjects, right? Because that's just their upbringing. That's the way they've been raised. That's the world they know. So for me, I always got into a discussion with these ethics teachers. And I went, well, everyone's biased. You're biased. They went, I'm trying not to be. Well, you're trying. That's the key word. You're trying not to be. But you need to realize that everyone on earth is biased to a certain degree. And if you don't accept that, you're always going to struggle with any new type of technology. You're going to struggle with any new type of thinking, because you're thinking I'm not biased, and that's the wrong vantage point to start from, for me at least. Not to go into a whole rant, but yeah.
no, but I think it's new and it takes time, and maybe there is no zero, point without 100% without discrimination of AI, but if it's better than the situation now, then we make progress.
Exactly. Yeah, and that like, you're fully right with the metaphor, using the Tesla metaphor, because we'll read about the one thing that it goes wrong because we love looking at that and going, yeah, look at that, they're all unsafe cars, but you haven't heard the 200,000 other cars doing perfectly fine that day. So, and like you mentioned, the humans crashing into trees themselves because they were distracted by their smartphones. Like for me, I don't know if I'd be rather be in a car for 24 hours driven by AI, or 24 hours by a human being, because that human being is going to get tired. They're going to look at their phone. They're going to get distracted by lights. They're going to get distracted by all different things. They're hungry. They're thirsty. AI is not going to get hungry or thirsty, hopefully. So, yeah.
No, but it's the data, but also the way you program your algorithms to analyze the data, of course. And the training data, we as a human. So that's if you, and that's even nowadays people, and I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years ago, the big Amazon discrimination case that in the IT department, because they say everyone we hired, we put in the system, and it were all 90% were men. So what did the algorithm? They thought, okay, 90% should be it's a successful IT person is a man. So that's six I think six before COVID. It was, I think so, but still people using that as a case in this. But if you put in wrong data, it learns this data. If you train a recruiter not good, the recruiter is using that training material and think that's the right way to learn. So that's the same. So it's the same point, but it's something new. It's AI. It's a computer. It's
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And you think about these all, AI being trained on millions of resumes, for example. But those resumes come from a system that already favors specific demographics. Like that's just there. That's been happening for years. Like we can't ignore that fact. So you sort of, I wouldn't say AI amplifies the bias, but it learns from it. So it's we get to a system where we think like it's all this sort of hyper intelligent technology just thinking for itself. I think everyone still's got it's sort of a matrix complex where we think this is all just technology's thinking. Well, it's is being trained by us, guys. It's still us, it's still human data. And sure, that thing can learn from that and can develop own thinking and rationales, but it's still human data to begin with.
Yeah, but I think you also have to be, how you say that, realistic. We should be realistic also. If you say we want to hire engineers, for example, so we don't want to discriminate. So we want, for example, 33% female, 33% male, and 33% X, or something different. But if the is the market, the labor market, do they have and are people graduating from the university? Are they also 1/3, 1/3, 1/3?
It's just supply and demand.
Is it also realistic? And
I agree.
So that's also something you have to be aware of.
Yeah, I agree, and that goes into the whole hiring for diversity thing, where you go, how diverse is it to hire specifically for a certain gender? Like, shouldn't you just be hiring the best person for the job? And I know, thankfully, there are plenty of companies and people who really stick behind that. Like you look at the skills and you look at job fit, for example, and you look at a variety of different things that look at whether that person is going to perform on the job, rather than, well, this is a great CV and it's got a great cover letter. Let's just hire that person because we already know that person a little bit. We think that person is going to do well. Gut instinct. That I always get sort of sick and tired of the recruiters that go, well, I can just spend 1 minute with a person and then I'll know. And I'm like, you know what? Because that I can do a facade for 1 minute where I can pretend to be an entirely different person, and I don't even play theatre that well. But you've got people that are just, especially those who can just do well in leadership positions, they've got a formidable portfolio. Don't tell me you're going to pick through those people in a minute. Like, you're not a psychiatrist, you're not a psychologist, you're not, you can't expect yourself to do that. So for me, it makes a lot of sense to try and see if there are systems that can help you eliminate your own biases. And I don't believe in like a bias-free recruitment that people will, sometimes put up on their employer branding, that they are those suppliers of technology, bias-free recruitment. That doesn't exist. No. But you can try and limit it. Yeah. You can definitely try and limit
it.
That's
it.
It's not about being bias-free.
At the end, there will still be a recruiter or a hiring manager who wants to have the final word, and maybe says, "I've got a better feeling with this woman than that guy." And then you used all the tools in round 1, 2, 3, and then at the end. But I think it's also good because in the AI Recruitment Outlook talk show we did earlier this year, you can still watch it back on our website, inrecruitment.com/
Outlook 2024.
Outlook, yeah.
I think I read this promo a few times.
So you can still watch it back, and there you went to Brussels to talk with Brando Benifei.
I did, and we thought, well, we'd be remiss because we're talking about all these serious, ethical concerns too, and how do we ensure AI in recruitment is a force for good and not for discrimination. So we've clipped a 2-minute soundbite from him, and we'll play that for you now if the technology will work, and it will. But what is your view on making sure that recruitment, in whatever form it's done, that with AI it could perhaps be less biased or more biased? What do you lean towards?
I'm convinced that it can be much less biased. Clearly, we cannot completely eliminate these risks, but the way we have designed our regulation, it will entail checks that will need to be performed following a standard that is now being developed. So that's why even if the law will be approved as a law of the Union in April 2024, it will take around 2 years before this will be fully applied, because we need standards to be developed, for example, on quality and appropriateness of data. That is crucial to look at how the training is done. At the same time, I want to be clear that we will start a clearly imperfect but partial application of the law with a voluntary anticipated compliance procedure for businesses and institutions before the standard is developed. So we will support businesses and institutions with a program that the European Commission will develop called the AI Pact that would help enacting the AI Act before it becomes a mandatory law. So it will accompany businesses and institutions to comply. In this case, that for the example I made, to comply with the obligations to check the appropriateness and quality of data used to train their systems, including systems used to perform recruitment duties.
I think it's very interesting what he says. I know he speaks like a real politician, doesn't he? He's great to listen to. But he acknowledges, the concerns about AI bias, and, it can be less biased than humans. I like how he framed that, because you speak to a lawmaker and you're not quite sure where that person is going to be on the peripheral, right? Is that person going to be careful? Is it a person going to be right? Oh, I'm fully for this. But I think it speaks testament to where the European Commission is at on this. And they just see the highlight, the responsible development and regulation. We can dissect some of his key points. What stuck out to you, Martijn?
Yeah, well, what I think, of course, is garbage in is garbage out, and that's what everything. Writing an article, if you do a bad interview with someone, you write an article about it, you've got a bad article. So that's also with this, and we talked about it. If you use a bad training data, it's trained with the wrong data. And you've got the biases, as we just discussed about. That there's input from humans who are biased. It's natural. That's something. But also we've got in the online Outlook 2024 show, we've got a text kernel. They got, I think it was later, I saw it on LinkedIn, that they had an audit in New York, the state of New York. And what they do, you say as a vendor of using AI, the auditor, they put in some training data, especially made to see whether the software, the AI, the algorithm is biased. And then so you can you should pay, of course. I think it's the US you can pay for the audit, and then you've got approved, you've got a stamp, so this tool is approved maybe for 1 year, like the ISO norms, for example. So I think that's a great way. So you have a tool, of course you use data, and then you can check it with a regular party. And I think something we will have this in Europe also, I think.
Absolutely, we'll
in
have
the near future. So you can ask a third party to check your software, and I think that's something, as a user, as a recruiter, a company or an agency, you want this. Your software is checked by someone, so it's bias free
to a certain level,
with some quotes.
Yeah, I agree completely. And he talks about the 2-year time frame, the AI Pact before the AI Act, which sounds like a nice nice sentence to say. But yeah, I mean, it's all about that, right? If you're, as a company, you use certain technology, and you're not sure whether that technology is completely compliant for the regulations that you have to adhere to, you'd feel a lot better knowing that software has been audited, third party audited, and that is just as bias free as it can get. I think, and if you use a company, you ask your supplier, and they say, well, now we're just going to wait 2 years before the regulation becomes official, I probably want to shy away from that supplier, because you want to make sure that because that's part of the regulation, right? You're not just responsible as the technology supplier, you're responsible as the user of the technology too. So the onus is on both. It's not just on the supplier side. So I think it's good for recruiters to try, and we've done this, over at recruitmenttech.com. We've covered quite a bit of info about the AI act itself and what it means and what it entails, and how recruiters should also feel responsible for the technology they're using. Because if you're using technology, you can't say, well, that's just IT's job, right? Or that's just the supplier's job. You're responsible too.
Yeah, you have to know what kind of decisions your software is making.
Absolutely.
And people can also ask you about it. And at the time frame, 2 years, it's still, you think, it takes a lot of time. But recruiters, but also the vendors, have time to implement this new regulations, of course.
Yeah, I think some people have called it quite soft to a certain degree because they've worked on it for quite a long time. And obviously AI is sort of penetrated into all these different technology processes, but at the same time, you have to give it time, because if you just say, well, you need to comply within 3 months, you'd hope that they do already comply. But at the same time, if there are minor details to which suppliers would have to go under, for example, because they can't quite comply with regulations, you wouldn't want that either. You want to give everyone a fair chance to fairly comply.
I think what's also interesting is that, and that might be something you just discussed also in the show with Tex Kernel. They said it's more in Europe. We have more boundaries regarding to the US, for example. But all those software vendors are not for every not making different software in the US and in Europe. In the UK, of course, that's also not that strict as in the EU. But they say, well, if we use the strictest regulations, then we can use it everywhere in the world, instead of making a lot of different software. So I think,
and in that sense, maybe the EU has now set a precedent for other companies for other countries to follow, and just like if you like you just mentioned, like if you're part of the strictest regulation, if you comply with that, you can comply with basically anything. But yeah, it's a very interesting subject. And I'd be curious to because you talked about the Outlook 2024, and not to make endless same promotion for our own live show, but it was really good. One of the people
we had a live show?
We had a live show, Recruitment Tech live show. AI and Recruitment live show. And one of the other guests was Laurens Waling. He's the chief evangelist at Advance. Who had some good takes on this. And he sent us a voice memo to sort of give us his thoughts on the subject.
Often, when I look at my timeline, I see worries about discriminating AI algorithms in recruitment. But I wonder, is it really that bad? Think about it. Humans, we should be fair, have often failed to hire the right people for years. Diversity and inclusion matter, right? People feel they are treated unfairly because of their age, gender, or even their names. There must be a reason for this, right? It's true. The way we hire has problems. We have left many people out of the job market, and we haven't given them fair chances. But if an algorithm checks candidate profiles, focusing on skills to make the best matches, then these systems might be a bit unfair due to not enough training data, even though there is a lot to learn from, millions of profiles out there. Still, I don't think it's a big problem. Even if these algorithms are a bit biased, aren't they much better than recruiters who hire just based on their feelings? Shouldn't we push for more of these algorithms and AI in hiring, instead of putting so much work into rules and regulations? I think we're too scared of new ideas in hiring. We shouldn't be. This is our chance to make a better and more open job market. Let's embrace these chances. Let's embrace AI.
Yeah, let's embrace AI. Interesting take. Are we too scared of new ideas in hiring, you think?
Yes. People are scared.
Yes.
Yes, of course. We are scared of every change.
Yeah.
We talk a lot about AI taking over our jobs. I think also recruiters might have this, but also not having enough knowledge about it makes people, of course, more scary. But I think it's still when you're in a recruitment team and you've got a new colleague and you've got a great a colleague who knows much more than you. He or she is much better than you. You're also afraid of the new people. So it's a bigger thing. It's not. It's and the change is big. We just saw it with the Udio and the Suno music make AI with pops up. And also 2 years ago, of course, with ChatGPT, with blows our mind off. So it's the change is getting faster and faster. Yeah.
No, I think he makes a very interesting point, and it's simple but very effective. And it also reminded me of an article I wrote last year about a study from 3 American researchers, and it sort of examined the impact of AI-powered pre-screening on employee retention. So they analyzed data from 15 companies using sort of call center jobs as a case study. And they found that when AI was used for pre-screening, employee retention rates increased by an average of 15%. So yeah, that's significant. Yeah,
especially
absolutely.
in these, especially the call center jobs, which it's refresh. People working sometimes 2-3 months, and then they are leaving your company. So you need a lot of people, and of course, 25% is more, but it's. I think it's all not all. It's the problem. If you look at the hiring business, it's not using one tool and all your problems are solved. It's a combination about tooling, regulations, the recruitment change to the recruitment process, training your people, your strategy. So all those things, and AI is one. AI/software is one of the things you have to take care of, but it's not the only way you solve problems like bias and discrimination.
No, I agree, and it sort of highlights for me the potential for AI to complement human judgment, right, in the hiring process.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what it comes down to for me. And also, a similar point was sort of made by a professor called Eddie Deroux from University of Leuven in Belgium, and he emphasized the same point. He argues that recruiters often rely on intuition and gut instinct, gut feelings, which can be very biased and unreliable, as we've spoken to already in this episode.
Yeah. We are humans, and we are not robots, and also because I think that talking about people, the words like bias isn't that big word, but discrimination is a big word. So I'd like to say, hey, you got some interviews with some people, and 2 of them are. You think you can both hire them, but you only have a place for one of them. But they are both perfect on the job. But one of them is also playing a soccer like you. And you had a nice chat when you go to the reception and pick him or her to go to the interview room, and that kind of, it's not discrimination, but it's the bias. The person you hire is someone who is more like you than the other one, although they both fit on the job.
Yeah, and I think it speaks. I read a really interesting article on a Dutch site called Werven that you may be familiar with, Martijn.
Yes, I know.
As one of the co-founders of the company. But it was all about sort of assessments, where assessments are based in a recruitment strategy. And he made the point of he's a headhunter himself, executive search. And he made the point of why is recruitment doing the quality check at the end rather than at the beginning. And I know assessments take a long time, but at the same time, it's such a good idea to get some form of third-party assessment just in front of candidates to get a real viewpoint on who that candidate is, rather than judging them on that interview that you had with them because they liked soccer, you hired them. They had a nice university name on their CV, and you went to the same university, and you was like, oh, well, actually, that sounds like a good fit. And he just made the point of executive search. It's all about doing a pre-assessment first, like getting a good vantage point on who that candidate is and what the company is looking for, and then you can look at the candidate. It's such a different approach, but it sounds so logical to me.
It is, but it even starts with your employer branding, of course. The way you communicate, showing your team of people. Are it all women? Are it all men? Are it all old people, young people? Is it the mix? People recognize themselves. So even then, you're biased, and it's still, if you look, it still surprises me at this point that in a lot of employer branding, recruitment marketing, and you see some pictures of a big consulting company, for example, and you think, well, why are they all look the same? The same type of university people. So it's still
sort of background.
Something that's that's being used, and then people visiting your career site, and then you've got job descriptions, which also uses you've got the text kernel, for example, or recruitagent.ai, tools that helps you to write bias-free job ads. So if you're using job ads already where females are recognize themselves much more than males, for example, then you're also got some other response. So even you're not starting with pre-screening already or pre-assessment, not the right people, what's right, what's wrong, but not the people you want are applying for the job, and can make the pre-assessment in this case. So we are not. It's not a topic we can say, Jasper, for the next couple of years. We don't have to talk about this.
No,
bias.
It's something that will keep popping up. Inevitably, we'll do another few episodes on this subject because we can talk endlessly about this. And I think the main takeaway is just always like to strike a balance between AI and human expertise. We're not saying that recruiters have no idea what they're doing. They obviously they're there for a reason. But if you just look at it, you have to think AI can handle certain tasks, pre-screening, resume passing, all of that, and identifying and helping you make better matches for the jobs.
Yes.
And I think that may be a good note to end this episode on, Martijn.
Can I make some small promotion?
You can.
Yes,
why not?
Because for the people, I think especially if you're living in the Netherlands, the 4th of June, there is a great event because we organize it also. It's the Recruitment Tech Demo Day, the 8th episode. Over 40 vendors of recruitment technology, and I think over half of them are already using AI in their solution. So we talked about, I know Advance will be there, but Lawrence Waling, for example. I think also Scotty Technologies is there. So, and a lot of other tools using AI. So it's a free event. So you can register at recruitmenttech.nl/demo day, and you can discover, see, and also use and try some great tools for recruitment.
Yeah, and you all get them in one place, right? And that's so good about that event, to continue our shameless promotion. I think that's definitely what's so good about that event. That you'd have to try hard to get to speak to all these different people, all these different suppliers, one at a time. And it will take you months, maybe even a full year to do that, to get the full scope on what's out there in terms of technology. But they're all there. You can talk to them. They can give you pitches, demos, all of that good stuff.
Yes.
And on that note, I would like to thank everyone for listening, and thanks to our sponsor, Advance. Again, they're the market leader in recruitment, one of the market leaders for sure. They've trained their AI on a total of 85 million resumes. That Advance also accurately predict the best job for your candidates. Go to advance.com to read more about their solution. Any last words from you, Martijn?
Well, should we play our song?
Absolutely.
Totally. For the last time.
See you next time, everyone.
In a world of endless possibilities, where technology meets our wildest dreams, we're paving our way to a brighter truth, with AI revolutionizing how we recruit. Jasper and Martijn, hosts of the podcast world, spreading knowledge, insights, and stories untold. They dive into the realm of innovation, AI and recruitment, tomorrow's salvation.